I've made a lot of social anxiety videos on this channel before. And a lot of the videos, I feel like they focused on how I overcame it, the challenges I faced, the things that I've learned from it. And even when I tried to research videos online about social anxiety, people posting their stories and, how they've coped with it and again, the challenges they faced. Video after video, I keep seeing the same thing. It's a lot of negative content out there regarding social anxiety. And while, yeah, there's a lot of difficult stuff that I faced and that others face, there were also a lot of great things that came from it. And I truly think it's one of the best experiences I've had and still have to this day. There were so many things that it brought me, that it challenged me to overcome, and that I've learned from and grew from. I know there are a lot of you out there struggling with social anxiety, and while sometimes it feels like you can be so alone and it can be so debilitating, I really urge you to think about it in a different way, especially for those of you who are still on that journey and trying to face some of those challenges and overcome some of those negative fears. Today, I'm going to share with you why I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to me and some of the things I've really learned and now have because of it. Before we get into the video, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Bridget. On this channel, I talk a lot about social anxiety. I also talk about introverts and general anxiety, talk about the books I'm reading. So if any of that interests you, make sure you check out some of my other videos as well. So with that being said, let's get into the video. So the first thing I want to talk about is perspective. One of the things that living with social anxiety has brought me is tremendous perspective in life. Not only when it comes to how I see the world, but also how I see other people experiencing their own challenges and the struggles that they face. It's so easy to look at yourself when struggling with something and, just think about all the negative things that are happening and how hard it is for you and your own struggles. I so often looked at the people in my life who were more outgoing than me, more friendly than me, and who had a very easy social life. And I envied them for it. And I really just wanted to be normal. But after years of self-discovery, really, and challenging myself and overcoming some of my biggest fears, you really start to get a good idea of how small problems can be. There are so many other people in the world facing such harder struggles than you are right now. And maybe this whole perspective thing didn't come out of just me overcoming my social anxiety, but it was definitely a huge shift. When I started to realize that my problems were so minute, it became easier for me to fix them. And it also really made me want to fix them. There were times in my life where I truly felt debilitated by my social anxiety, where I really felt like I was never going to get ahead. I was never going to be able to make friends. I was never going to get a real job. I was never going to be able to go to college. I was never going to be able to move home. But I did all those things. It took a lot of work, and sometimes it was really freaking hard and challenging, and I wanted to just crawl into a ball and, but then you start to think about everything else that's happening in the world and all the other challenges that people in your life are facing, regardless of whether you know or not. And the challenges that you're currently facing don't seem all that bad. Another thing I want to point out with perspective is kind of funny, and it's just something I want to throw in here, is that because you're not spending that much time talking and you're spending more time listening to people, you tend to read people pretty well. You get a better read on people and a better perspective on other people's lives, I guess. Number 2, living with social anxiety also made me more willing to mess up and fail, or mess up and try again. I think with a lot of people, one of the biggest fears involving social anxiety is that fear of failure, the fear of judgment. At least for me, that's how it was. In my eyes, I thought it was easier to not do something than do something and look like an idiot. Because it truly, at its core, social anxiety feels like everybody is watching you, everybody is judging you, everyone's looking at you. They're looking at the way you're dressed, your facial expressions, the way that your hands are moving, the way you walk, the way you eat. Because we focus on all of those things and we're so detail-oriented about, hyperfixating on what our body should look like and what we should sound like and what we should be doing, we're certainly not thinking about, making a fool of ourselves or making us stand out more in public. So we're definitely not going to be the type to be the first person to do basically anything in front of anyone. And if you truly understand that's what's holding you back, that's when you're able to really start making changes. When I first started on my journey, I guess, and I started to try and face some of those fears and try and overcome some of those fears in my life, I started to notice that some of the fears I had, I really just built up so much in my head, right? And I guess that's really what it is, right? It's something in your head that makes you not want to do something at all, that stops you from doing something at all. And I remember in the beginning taking those first steps, right? Making that first phone call on my own without anyone forcing me. That first time I asked a question in class on my own. The first time I approached someone to make a friend on my own. The times I asked for help, right? The small things that I did. Every time I challenged myself and I saw the outcome, whether it was good or bad. Most of the time, it was pretty good. Every time I saw the outcome, I realized how much I'd been building up so much excess potential in my mind. And every time I realized that something good can come from stepping out of my comfort zone, it reassured me and put me in the right mindset to say, you know what, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I should take more risks. Maybe I should challenge myself more. Because at the end of the day, after taking those risks, regardless of the outcome, I always felt proud of myself. I always felt like I had accomplished something. And it could have been the smallest thing ever. But hey, at least I did it, right? There's the saying that failing is not trying something and not succeeding. Failing is not doing anything at all. And I think that's truly what it takes to, overcome some of these challenges. It's having that mindset. It's the fear that we build up in our head that really stops us from doing the things we want to do. And once we encourage ourselves and we put ourselves out there and, do the thing and reassure ourselves that we can do it, it makes overcoming the bigger challenges so much easier. And that for me, in my entire life, that's something I live by, not just in my social life, but in anything, right? It could be my mental health, it could be my physical health. The more I challenge myself, the more I feel better, the more I learn about myself, the more I grow. So I take that perspective from what social anxiety has given me after overcoming it, and I put that into every area of my life now. I want to challenge myself. I want to grow. I want to get better every single day. And the last thing I want to mention is if you are on the journey of overcoming it, if you are at the point where you're putting yourself out there a little more and you're seeing some results, but you're still not quite where you want to be. Overcoming it, I will say, demands consistent effort on your part. And it's a lot of work. It requires a lot of mental strength. And again, I've seen it in other areas of my life. My physical health, for example, one thing. I struggled with weight my entire life. I still struggle with my weight sometimes. Like I was saying, part of my journey also looked like me pushing myself more and getting out of my comfort zone. And, there were periods where I lost a lot of weight and then I gained maybe a little bit back, or I stayed consistent or stable, and then I lost a little bit more weight. So at my highest, I was about 80 pounds more than I am now. So in the last, I'd say 7 years, I've lost 80 pounds and have been consistent about it. I've kept the weight off. And that required a lot of mental strength. And it was also something I was doing while I was still really struggling with my social anxiety. But because I was pushing myself physically and pushing myself mentally, I put myself in this mindset where I can do it no matter what. Because I was so focused on the result. I was so focused on what my life could look like. It kept me going every single day. Right? When I saw the results with what happened with my social anxiety and how I could challenge myself and challenge those fears and overcome some of those fears, I put all of that energy into also focusing on my physical health. And because I saw that working, it pushed me even more to overcome more fears in my social life. And the two were just bouncing off of each other because I kept seeing the results and I kept envisioning what my life could look like if I did achieve it. And the great thing about it is that right now I've probably surpassed most of the goals that I set back in the day. I probably have. But once you're in that mindset where you're just looking to improve and be better than you were yesterday, now I have new goals and now I have a new life that I envision, right? So every day is a challenge, but every day is also an opportunity for us to look for new growth and new things that we can be doing and new ways of looking back at our life and seeing how much we have accomplished. Because I think that's also really important when we take a look at our journey as a whole. It's so easy to focus on the present and what we haven't accomplished yet, and looking way into the future and thinking, oh my gosh, that seems like a lifetime from now. It seems like I'll never get to that goal. But once we take a look at the past, where we came from, and how much we have accomplished, how much we have challenged ourselves, it's a great way to, just stop and pause and be in the moment and say, you know what, I have done a lot. I am capable of a lot. I can do more. I've done it in the past and I will continue to do it. And so that's how I choose to look at my social anxiety. Like I said, I still struggle with this. I guess I'm like a maybe overly positive person and I always choose to look at the positive side because that's just how I cope with things. But I think social anxiety has brought me more, at least in the position that I am now, than if I didn't have it. I'm proud that I have it. I'm proud that I've overcome so many challenges that although were created in my head, they're still challenges and they were still opportunities for my growth and being better than I was yesterday. So watch this video again and again and again until hopefully you start to realize the same. Or hopefully you take a look at your own social anxiety journey and just look at it a little bit different. Don't worry about what happened yesterday. Don't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Take every day one step at a time. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, found it useful as always, and I will see you next time.